All right, MrSotko here, and welcome back to another Company Heroes 2 replay cast. And today it is a 1 vs 1 on Kolodny Firma. And let's take a look at our players. We have BartonPL as the blue Russian player, and Hasu as the red Wehrmacht player. And we'll take a look at the map. This is the first time I've casted this map, and our victory points all the way up through the middle. We have our fuel on the bottom right side, and the munitions directly next to it, and the same way mirrored at the top. And we'll see how this game plays out. We have the Russian engineers moving towards the center here. Looks like they're going all the way up to the northern side, and the engineers for the Wehrmacht immediately going for the first territory point directly outside of his base. Now for the blue Russian player, Barton, looks like he has 4 engineers to start, which is quite unusual to say the least. And the first unit out for the Wehrmacht player is an MG42, followed by a Grenadier, which is a pretty usual starting for the Wehrmacht. Engineers taking the center victory point and starting to put up that barbed wire so that his opponent cannot use this as cover. Engineers taking the territory points, now spreading out his engineers, a 5th engineer on the way. And so this means that they come out very, very quickly, and he's able to take territory very, very quickly with all of his engineers that are coming out. As you can see, he has many, many more troops than the Wehrmacht player to start. Although they are much weaker, they can take the territory very quick and give a quick economic advantage to the Russian player. Now setting up the MG42, and it's set up directly in front of here, and it looks like these engineers are actually going to run directly into it. Now firing the MG42 directly in this building here, and at these engineers as well. I think they're just inside the range. Yep, looks like they're just inside the range of that MG42. However, resisting the suppression because they are behind good cover here. Engineers now coming around the corner here as well. And all the engineers made by Barton are just spreading out across the map and taking territory very, very rapidly. Now engineers taking this fuel point up here back from the Russians, and these engineers are going to try and contest it. And as long as they stay at a good distance away from these engineers, they should be just fine, as the engineers for the Wehrmacht player have submachine guns, which are very close range. Now we have engineers inside of this church here. And still the battle continues up here. And down to 2 engineers for the Wehrmacht player, as these engineers were much longer ranged and defeated those 2. Now bringing the Grenadiers up that way. A battle going on over here. Grenadiers versus these engineers, but both sides have negative cover. So these engineers are going to lose out very, very quickly here. And even a Grenadier was destroyed there. Now these engineers coming around the back side and should stay back here. And then that way they don't get that negative cover. However, these Grenadiers are very distracted by that one engineer there. And he's saying, what is this? Because of all the engineers out on the field. Now 6 engineers out on the field for Barton. 3 Grenadiers, engineers, and an MG42 for Hasu. Now engineers chasing down these Grenadiers here, getting pretty aggressive against these engineers. Or these Grenadiers, rather. Unfortunately, the cover for these engineers is not very good, and these Grenadiers have much better cover, so they will defeat those engineers eventually. Engineers inside of this building here, guarding this territory point. However, these Grenadiers are still taking it. But I think those Grenadiers will lose out eventually, as they don't have as good cover as those engineers. Now engineers flanking these Grenadiers here, sending these engineers back to go ahead and reinforce those. Now the Wehrmacht has taken the majority of the top of the map, and now the right side of the map, although owned by the Russian, and sort of the bottom as well. The German is making very, very good moves against the engineers because they're just so weak. So eventually the engineers are going to be dying off pretty quickly here. Engineers, these have flamethrowers, so he started to add flamethrowers to his engineers every time he gets 60 munitions. So he will have plenty of flamethrowers eventually. Engineers now moving towards German territory, taking this territory point. And also up top, taking the fuel point from the Germans as well. So the Russian owns both of the fuel points, denying that German the precious fuel that the Germans need so badly. MG42 sitting here, also taking this at the same time, well as guarding it at the same time as well. Engineers just about to take that territory point, and going to move around there, take that territory. And he says 5 NG with a question mark, but it's actually 6 engineers. His engineers have a flamethrower, however, loses out to those Grenadiers. Doesn't really want to lose anymore, so he goes ahead and retreats those back to base. Now a second flamethrower on an additional engineer here. So just as soon as he gets 60, he's just piling up flamethrowers on these engineers.
You need something built?
And the engineers build very, very quickly. They reinforce very cheaply, and they are a very cheap cost to build in the first place. So that's why he has so much territory on the map right now. He just has engineers everywhere. No matter where you look, there's some engineers in this building here battling out with these grenadiers. And so they're just going to hold out until they start to lose some forces here. They're really just denying the Germans territory and really just being a nuisance at the moment. And they slow the German advances down over and over, even though they lose out typically on these battles. He's slowing down the advance of Hasu. And because of that, Hasu has a very low income right now. Engineers still behind this. The Grenadiers still behind this cover here. And battling out with these engineers, now fresh engineers in that building. So he switched out the old engineers for some new engineers. Out with the old, in with the new. Engineers now moving up towards this fuel point. Just taking this fuel point back and forth from the Germans here, denying that fuel. As the Germans late game need fuel very badly, as all their armor costs much more than the other armies. Now getting back here because of this MG42 setting up, so just gonna hop right over the fence and go somewhere else. So very annoying engineers all over the place. Retreating these engineers, lost to these pioneers and these grenadiers here. Now grabbing this victory point from the Russian player. The Russian player owns all 3 victory points. And because of that, it has a pretty quick advantage so far, about 457 to 465. So technically the Russian losing just a little bit. Just got all these victory points though. So now trying to turn a game around. However, the German superior units are just pushing away these engineers over and over. So really the engineers are really just a nuisance at the moment. And it's a pretty fun, maybe a trollish strategy on his part on Barton. Maybe he just felt like doing something real wacky this game, but still pretty funny. I enjoy it. These MG42 taking the center victory point. And these engineers have fallen back to this territory point here and are going to be taking it. However, there's a scout car and these grenadiers. And so these guys are going to have to be running very, very quickly here. He's going to try and run over those engineers there. However, these engineers are running away, but he can easily chase with this scout car. Decides not to, though, as it's a pretty cheap tactic just to chase down troops. But it is a tactic indeed. Grenadiers now taking this munitions point. Now going after these engineers once again, just sort of stalling back and forth there. Now the Germans starting to take over more territory than the Russian has. So, indeed, these grenadiers are just falling off the usefulness table. Now an M5 half-track out on the field. So a very good half-track here with 2 engineers with flamethrowers. So there's 2 flamethrowers in the back of this half-track. So that's pretty funny. However, there's 3 additional engineers on the ground battling out with these grenadiers here. So these grenadiers are in big trouble as all these flames are going to start rolling down on these grenadiers. Indeed, takes out 2 of them just about an instant there, and he's going to have to run away. However, the scout car has the 2-centimeter upgrade, so he will destroy this half-track very easily should they engage each other. So both of them are sort of staying far away from each other. Don't really want to lose either one of them. And these engineers are battling out. Now we have an M17 with a quad mount on the back. So I didn't even notice him getting this. And that quad mount costs 120 munitions. So he managed to get 120 munitions and get that quad mount, as well as these 2 flamethrowers. So he's just really pumping out the munitions. He really tried to capture those munitions early so he could get that. Grenadiers taking this. Grenadiers taking the top victory point as well. So the Wehrmacht is going to have all 3 victory points very, very soon. So the Russians will be being lowered in points very quickly. However, these M17 half-tracks are moving along here. This is an M5 and this is an M17, so slightly different, I suppose. But either way, they are now pushing out. And these half-tracks are doing very good damage. This one, very good at anti-infantry. This one's pretty good at anti-infantry as well with the quad mount, but also can do some pretty good damage to that scout car that's coming out. Now a second scout car out for the Wehrmacht player, so this is a really wacky game.
You need something built?
It looks like he has 2 additional scout cars queued up, so he's just massing scout cars. So this is one of the wackiest games I've ever casted, with 6 engineers, now guard rifle infantry, to take care of those light vehicles, those scout cars, and the PTRS anti-tank rifle will do very good damage to those scout cars, while suffering very little themselves. Now the half-tracks moving along and coming around here to get to these grenadiers, and these grenadiers have to run all the way around, so they're going to deal with these flamethrowers, as well as this quad mount, so he will lose those grenadiers. So a fair loss to that Wehrmacht. Now with all 3 of his scout cars out, he is ready to do some big damage with these, and he will have a 4th one very soon. 2 grenadiers Pioneers and an MG42 and 3 scout cars currently out for the Wehrmacht player. Whereas it's 6 engineers, guard rifle, and a couple half-tracks here of different sorts. Here come the 3 squad scout cars, and they're going to do big damage to all these half-tracks with that 2 centimeter, and destroys those almost instantly, losing one of the scout cars. So an eye for an eye there, and he's trying to get these engineers out of there. However, they're getting all caught up on all this mess here. And this quad cannon is a formidable force against those light scout cars, so he does have to watch against that. He really can't just rush this quad cannon, because he will take some pretty good damage from that. Now bringing up that quad cannon, firing on these troops and that scout car there, taking some pretty good damage. But at the same time, these scout cars can do just about equal damage to that M17 with that 2 centimeter cannon on the top of them. Now hitting them with guards rifle infantry here. Hitting them right in the back of the armor. This is exactly where he needs to hit it. Takes out one of those scout cars. So a big bonus to the Russian team here for taking out a scout car with just a guards rifle infantry.
Scout car awaiting orders.
This scout car unable to defend itself as its main weapon is destroyed. So those engineers are going to have to go over there and repair that up. These guard rifle facing the wrong way there. We're fighting those grenadiers there and need to face the other way. Trying to push that scout car up on them to run those guard rifle over, and killed almost all those guard rifle. I thought he had killed them all. Now down to just 2, and gonna have to run those out of there. Should protect that this guard rifle with this T-70, bringing this T-70, and didn't notice him actually buying that T-70 as there's just so much action going on. Engineers now taking the fuel point back from the Wehrmacht. T-70 is chasing down the scout car, and this T-70 will destroy the scout car as long as it can get in there. And it does, out of control, destroys that scout car. So looks like 3 or 4 scout cars total lost for the Wehrmacht player. So big losses for the Wehrmacht so far, on both sides actually. Now losing that was his 4th one there. So losing a 4th scout car there, now has no scout cars out of the map. So he bought 4 and lost them just about immediately. PTRS anti-tank rifle chilling on the ground there. Should be taking that with a grenadier. As soon as he spots that, that would be a nice little bonus to have for some grenadiers. Could hit something with a Panzerfaust and then blast it with a PTRS. Not too bad of a combination, if you ask me. So these grenadiers are coming around here. However, this half-track, is going to force them to stay back there. He does have Panzer grenadiers now with the dual Panzerschrecks, and it looks like he may get the hit off, but it looks like he's just going to get out of there just in time. This G70 is being bold and going right at these Panzerschrecks, and that might not be the best idea. Really needs to get that out of there. Going to lose that T-70. Unnecessarily lost that T-70, in my opinion. Didn't really need to do that. Now engineers moving forward once again. The massive engineer still has 6 engineers, and now 2 guards rifle to take care of any additional armor that is brought out by the Wehrmacht. However, I don't think the Wehrmacht is going to be bringing out any armor anytime soon. Loses that Panzerschreck team of the Panzer Grenadiers there to that half-track. Big loss there, but he can pick up that the dropped Panzerschreck and only have to pay 60 to buy another one for his Panzer Grenadier group. Now bringing up guard rifle, and he has 2 guards rifles, so one of them is just coming out of the base, just reinforced. And now a 3-star half-track is moving around here, increases the vehicle sighting and the reinforcement radius of that. So you can reinforce with this half-track as well, so it's not only a very good anti-infantry and somewhat anti-light armor as well, but it can also reinforce his troops. Guard rifle battling out with this MG, and I don't think they're going to last too long. However, I think he's going to pull this half-track back at some point, start firing into this building. I'd like to see that indeed. Firing at this building, however, he's a good distance away, and so those bullets weren't really doing too much at that distance. Now engineers moving up here, and they do have a flamethrower. The arc of this MG is not facing at these engineers, so these engineers are going to get a couple hits off. Now a Puma out for the Wehrmacht. A very, very, very good unit here. The scout car, it's more like an armored scout car. It is lightly armored, but it does massive damage typically, and he's trying to run over these engineers here. And if you can squeeze the engineers with a tank or something like that, they will run them over and kill them. Engineers forcing away this grenadier here. It had a Panzerschreck there, but was lost to that quad cannon. And Hasu actually surrenders to Barton's mass engineer skill here. 6 engineers, 3 guard rifle, and this hero half-track here. just forced the Wehrmacht back the entire time as the engineers got a huge economic advantage in the beginning of the game. They just took way, way more spots than the Wehrmacht could possibly take. So a pretty funny game. Very interesting. 4 scout cars for Hasu, but lost them all. Didn't really get to do too much with them. I think they only really took out one M17, or the half track rather. So I really hope you enjoyed this game, and I will see you guys next time.